Why you keep getting ensnared by narcissists. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. It's clearly the case that in order to be watching this video, you have been involved with narcissists, probably more than one, and that you have asked the very question that forms the title of this video. Why is it that I keep on getting ensnared by narcissists? You might have been drawn to my work because of a romantic entanglement. That tends to be the one that draws most people to material about narcissism. But it could also be because of the impact of a familial narcissist, or a neighbourly one, or a social one, or a work one. We pop up everywhere. For those that you aren't familiar, I'm a diagnosed narcissistic psychopath, which enables me to give you so much brilliant content about the way that my kind function and think, that I'm able to lift the lid on it all, to allow you to get under the hood, under the bonnet, to gain that understanding. I also understand our victims inside out. I have to, otherwise I wouldn't be able to ensnare them myself, would I? The fact is, you might think to yourself, well, why do I keep getting caught out? I've read the books, I've taken courses, I've watched videos, I've learned lots and lots about narcissists and the way that they behave and what they do and what they say and how they conduct themselves, and I still get caught out. Why? Well, there are several reasons why that might be. A starting point is not all of the material is of any use to you. There is a lot of rubbish out there, which is issued by people who mean well but don't really understand the topic, and a lot of unaware narcissists creating material about narcissism, although they don't realise what they are. There is a lot of crap. There's also a whole host of individuals who are supposed relationship advisors and gurus who talk about relationships without even realising that there is the narcissistic dynamic, and they often give poor and sometimes dangerous advice to people. But you presumably are thinking to yourself, I've learned about narcissism, I've looked at your work, HG, and yet I still find myself getting caught out. Why is this happening? Well, the first point is to understand that it's likely that you are an empathic individual, which means that you have an addiction to narcissists. This is an addiction that you can never ever get rid of, but you can manage it and control it. That's the good news, and I have a raft of material that will assist you in that regard. Your addiction is part of who you are, and ordinarily it won't cause you any problem whatsoever, save when along comes a narcissist. And at that juncture, essentially, you start to take leave of your senses. It's like you become drunk. So ordinarily, you go on a night out and you have one or two drinks, you enjoy yourself, you have a chat, you have a laugh with your friends, and you go home. But then there might be another occasion where all of a sudden you're up on one of the tables, whipping your top off, showing the pub your goods, singing Hi-Ho Silver Lining, and you then start brawling with someone who tells you to get down off the table before throwing up in the doorway and running off for a kebab from Abracadabra. Why did you act the way that you did? Well, you'd taken in too much alcohol, and it caused your personality to change. In a similar way, the addiction has that effect on you. The addiction creates something called emotional thinking, and this means you're not hysterical, but rather that you make decisions without application of logic. You basically take leave of your senses and engage in behaviours which are not the best ones for you. Accordingly, you can learn plenty about narcissism, but if you don't get your emotional thinking under control, all that knowledge is meaningless. It's a little bit like when you drive a car at night. You know to put the headlights on, to put your seatbelt on, and you know which side of the road to drive on. But if you down a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc and a couple of tequila shots, you become inebriated, and therefore you may well fail to put your seatbelt on, fail to switch on the headlights, and weave all over the road. You haven't forgotten how to drive, but the knowledge that you've acquired in terms of being able to drive has become impaired as a consequence of your imbibing the alcohol. It's similar. You need the knowledge about narcissism, and this is the best place to get it from in terms of depth, understanding and clarity. But if you don't get your emotional thinking under control, all of that acquisition of knowledge will quite frankly mean bugger all. You will take leave of your senses, fail to apply it. You might find that rather strange to believe. How can it be that once I've acquired this information that I fail to rely upon it? But it's the same way, as I mentioned with the drink driving analogy. Something else is getting in the way, and your emotional thinking causes you not to pay heed to the red flags that you've learned about, that it causes you to become overexcited about the person that you've met, and therefore caution and logic are left behind. Thus, you get ensnared again. It's also the case that people get ensnared repeatedly by narcissists because they fail to understand that we appear in lots of different shapes and sizes. I have created a detailed school structure and sub-school structure to help you understand the different types of narcissists that exist. It's not enough to talk about the covert narcissist, the vulnerable narcissist, the grandiose narcissist. Those terms are way too wide. You need to know about the lower lesser, lower mid-ranger, the upper lesser type A, the middle greater, and so forth. Accordingly, by recognizing that narcissists aren't just the, hey, look at me, aren't I hot and sexy, you want it, don't you, babe, type of individual, but they can come across as polite and quiet and reserved to begin with. There are lots of different ways that the narcissist will present. I've had instances where, for example, one of my clients, she was involved with the narcissist, she came to my work, she digested all of it, read all of the books that I had written at that point in time. She consulted with me and I got her away from the narcissist. She then went quiet. I didn't hear anything from her for 9 months, and then she came back and she said, HG, I need your help. I've been caught again. I've married another narcissist. This one was completely different to the first one. She hadn't appreciated that fact, nor had she paid heed to me telling her that she needed to stay away from dating to lower her emotional thinking. She fell prey to the useless adage of the best way to get over somebody is to get under somebody new. And thus, she went out dating while her emotional thinking was still high, found another narcissist who, rather than be brash and bold and belligerent, rather than being outgoing and grandiose in his behaviours, this one was relatively quiet and unassuming. And it turned out that she was ensnared by a different type of narcissist, and she hadn't appreciated that. So she became ensnared again because she'd failed to get her emotional thinking under control, and she'd failed to understand that there are different types of narcissist, and therefore she simply wasn't looking out for what came her way. Many people keep getting ensnared because they don't follow an appropriate no-contact regimen. So they were ensnared by the narcissist, realise what they're dealing with and end the relationship, or the narcissist more usually has ended the relationship with them, and they realise what has gone on. But rather than doing something appropriate with regard to the implementation of a total no-contact regimen, they go at it half-hearted. Many instances I have people contact me and they say, HG, I'm in no contact, but the narcissist keeps texting me. How do I make it stop? I don't read the texts, or I don't reply to the text. That's not enough. But they think that's a no-contact regime, and they really do. And thus, they get ensnared again by the same narcissist, roped back in, because their emotional thinking has not gone down, and they don't have a no-contact regime. They think that they do. Their emotional thinking makes them think that they do, but they haven't. And that means that it's easy for the narcissist to get back in again. This means that it's problematic for that individual because they get caught again. In order to avoid being ensnared by narcissists after your first ensnarement, you need to know what to look for. You need to read my books, Red Flag and Black Flag, and utilise the early warning detector. You'll find all of those in the Knowledge Vault. You then need to ensure that you use clarity, that you've reduced your emotional thinking by the implementation of a solid no-contact regime. My materials tell you how to do that. Furthermore, you need to ensure that existing narcissists don't pull you back in. And again, that means the implementation of a total no-contact regime across the 5 arenas of interaction. Again, my work details what that is. Essentially, the reason you keep getting ensnared is a failure to access the right information and apply it. This isn't me blame shifting, but stating a simple fact. But if you dedicate yourself to the reduction of your emotional thinking and learning about narcissism, then you will ensure that you don't get caught again. And that can only be a good thing. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.